everyone. Welcome back to the Automotive Logistics and Supply Chain Red Sofa. I'm here with Patrick Bauer, VP of Supply Chain and self-described Chief Coconut of the supply chain at IAC Group, of course, a major tier 1 supplier. Patrick, so good to have you with us. And Patrick's been on stage talking with us about scenario planning, about managing highly disruptive and flexible supply chains. And Patrick, one of the points that you've often made is taking a very data analytics driven approach to managing your demand and real demand from OEMs. And how is that evolving or changing now in the context of what we're seeing in the supply chain over the past 6 months to a year?
Yeah, good question. I think I have a very talented and skilled data analytics group. And most of what we have done is really internal within IAC. How do we take the data that we have internal and be able to display it as, decision-making tools for our plants and our organization? I'd say this is probably the first year where we've actually reached out beyond IAC and linked in with other systems, other providers, and other data in order to enhance decision-making. So as a couple examples of that, we've talked about tariffs and we'll continue to talk about tariffs, and we've been able to work with our broker, our solicitation group, our own system, and be able to display a report and data that says, what's the impact on IAC, based on the additional tariffs that we've had. We're also working on a PFAP. So we've talked about the PFAP, and I've talked about it before, but now we're really more linked in with our LLP now. So now we're sharing information out of their TMS into our report. So we're actually using a little bit more proactive work now, sharing data back and forth. So I think the difference is now we're integrating with other suppliers, other systems, and other tools. So.
Okay, rather than being more internally focused on that data. That's exciting. One of the things we've often also spoke about, highly flexible supply chain, of course, can bring risks and cost, whether in carrying extra inventory or having to expedite freight or whatever it might be. Again, how are you taking an approach to managing that variability and risk in the current context?
So, as we talked about in the first question, looking at analytics and tools. So we've created some tools now that look at customer demand. So how do we look at customer demand, bring that in, and anticipate what it's doing? Kind of a progression of what the customer demand is to when they actually consume it. And so by using that, we're now able to take a look at it, and do we want to make different decisions and how we now flow that into releases to our suppliers. So now we're able to flow that into our suppliers. I think the challenge that we have, in terms of flexibility, is we're increasing our ocean transportation, and that's creating a problem. That's not very flexible, as we all know. So, we're looking with our partners on different boat options. To do fast boat. We're every 2 months we're updating our transit time. So we're doing a lot of things to try to, as the best we can, shorten the window of transportation, but without putting risk on the company. Because obviously we got to make sure we meet customer demand, and we're not going to miss that. But how do we control that? And it's becoming very tricky to do that.
I can absolutely imagine. One of the headlines in the session that we're in together is scenario planning. And how important that has become. And again, you've already been alluding to some integration with your suppliers and some tools, but are you taking different approaches to scenario planning as well when looking across all the variation that we're seeing?
Yes, we are. So as I commented earlier, we've created a tool called the customer demand waterfall. And we're using that tool for a variety of different purposes. So pulling a lot of data about our own ERP system, but we're also reaching into our financial system. We're also reaching into the data analytics that is on our shop floor, and how do we manage our processes, and how do we take that information and data and provide tools, solutions, what-if scenarios to the organization. So we're looking at, based on, how our operating processes are working, based on the demand that we're seeing from different programs, different customers. What do we want to change? Can we change our operating plan? Can we do things differently in order to keep our costs and everything in control based on how the volume's flowing? We're also using it for our financials. So how what does our EBITDA look like? When we're seeing the different programs change, volumes change, how is that impacting our organization? What do we expect our EBITDA performance to be? So again, I think it's, from my organization standpoint, this is a fun time because we're now able to reach into areas that we really haven't gone before. And we're having a lot of fun doing it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, well, that's great to hear that it's actually fun with that. And speaking of maybe something, hopefully that brings some fun. I mean, you talk about a talented data analytics team. Are you also taking steps into where AI comes into, where you can take use this data in even more advanced ways?
Yeah. So, interestingly, my group is the lead organization for M365 Copilot. So we're the ones working it, and we're the ones actually teaching the rest of the organization how it works. So, and again, it's not a major AI initiative, but it is because it allows us to work with different applications and use AI to make things faster, make them smarter. We're partnering with Georgia Tech. So we have a partnership with them. We are the lead organization in terms of what can we bring AI into our organization. So a couple areas we're looking at: production scheduling, production attainment, and how our KPIs on the shop floor managing to that, and what changes should we make more on the fly versus having to kind of work through it and think things out. So be able to be more agile in our scheduling and output. We're also looking at I call it the customer waterfall. How do we do more predictive? We know what the customer says they're going to do. We know what they've actually do. What do we really think they're going to do? So reaching out and doing that analysis. We also have a data warehouse. So I think one of the primary enablers to AI is you got to have good data, and you got to have a data warehouse. You got to have the data available. And so we're blessed because we have that. So we're able to now say, hey, I got historical data. I can look out in the future and do a better predictive of what the customer is actually going to do, and then make some decisions on what are we going to do with it.
Well, that is exciting. And in some ways, I mean, not as surprising maybe that the supply chain is at the heart of some of the AI initiatives, because to your point, that's where the data is. That's where some of the biggest data points are. Last question, you talked about working with your LLP and connecting through data further, other things. Is there more you need from your logistics and supply chain partners to build this more resilient and flexible supply chain that we're aiming for?
Yeah, and I think it's been a progression. So you got to have data. So it's got to be data. It's got to be data that's available, that's quickly, and it's got to be accurate. So we're constantly, reaching out and making sure we have the data, especially when we talk about suppliers. Suppliers have to have the data available to us, let us know what their situation is. So it gives us the ability to react. So it's accuracy in the data and be able to give it up front. Flexibility, scalability, how do we get our LLPs to allow us to go up and down in volumes? They can react with our volumes up and down and make sure we have the right freight footprint to manage it, at the lowest cost and the best modes possible. Similarly with the supply base, we're going to see ups and downs from our customer. We don't want to be the ham in the sandwich where we're the ones stuck with all the inventory and stuck with the cost. Our expectation is our supply base is going to react as well. And so by providing, using our data analytics and pushing those into releases, I think we're giving that flex, that visibility to our supply base. We don't do as much interaction with our supply base that I think we should, other than, obviously in the releases. But again, that's just an example. We need flexibility and scalability from our supply chain, as well as our carriers.
Absolutely. Well, great points across the board. A fun time, if not a stressful and challenging one. But we're really looking forward to keeping up with some of these initiatives and learning more about the next step. Patrick, so thank you so much for being here at the 25th Anniversary Automotive Logistics and Supply Chain Global Conference and for joining me on the Red Sofa.